He was a pretty big deal in the advertising game. There's schools in Tottenham where kids were caught with handguns in the school. I've got a kid, and that's probably my main motivation.
Welcome back to the podcast this week on NSFW. It is me, Horner, joined by Savile Berry, Joe Tomlinson in the building.
Hello.
Hello, mate.
Joe Tomlinson who's been absent.
Yeah, where
I'm
you been,
back.
bro?
I haven't been on a podcast in like 3 weeks.
You didn't want to get to know
Yeah.
me. That's what it was, wasn't it?
That's
Yeah,
what it
because I knew
was.
you talk forever and you just wouldn't stop.
Shock. Longest podcast you've done.
Sorry, just a disclaimer before we,
He was forced to
I
do
was
it.
told before we were
Yeah,
doing
he
it
was.
that the boys wanted to push the lengths and go to sort of like a 1.5 hour mark,
Yeah,
which we
man.
will continue today.
Yeah, man.
Will we? For Sav, have you got an hour and a half worth of stories? I'm not sure.
I don't know. We have to get through viewers' questions of how many times they've asked, how often do you get a trim?
Oh, do you
How often do you get a trim, Savile? Do you want to answer the
Not very
question?
often. Look at the side of my head.
Yeah.
looks
No
good.
fade
It looks
whatsoever.
decent.
Once every
Nah.
10 days, I'd estimate Savile
Probably
gets a
about
trim.
that.
Well, let's not
Once
get to the
every 10
questions
days.
right away.
Whoa, that's
Because
facts.
today we are getting to know the wonderful Savile Berry.
Come on.
Why are you calling him wonderful? Nobody else got wonderful.
Yes, we did. Georgia got wonderful. All right then,
Yeah.
Why are Georgia and Sav getting preference over me? I didn't get a wonderful.
because we're actually nice people.
Probably true.
I don't know, you weren't here for the other shoots, everyone might have got one.
Maybe. No, I've listened to him, definitely.
Have you?
Yeah.
Nah,
What did we
no
say last week?
No chance. Listen to an
At
hour and
the-
40
at
of
the-
Dave Horner talk about himself.
Mate,
Get it enough, mate.
Say what you want. As of the time of recording,
No,
the only get to know we've ever done that's got no dislikes.
Whoa.
It's very
Everybody go
true.
and dislike that video right now, please.
That's fine, because if you do it now, then they were novelty ones, so it doesn't
Novelty
matter.
dislikes.
But we are getting to know Sav. So basically, we've done this for obviously every member of the, pretty much every member of the nation,
Yeah, man.
and we want to dive in. So I think what we'll do is we'll start. I say this as if it's a new idea. We've done this with everyone. Basically, you take us from the top. A little bit about yourself. What's your name? Where'd you come from? Blind date style with Scylla back.
What'd you name? Where'd you come from?
R.I.P.
Oh yeah, shout out.
R.I.P. Scylla.
Yeah,
Shout
shout
out.
out Scylla. And yeah, let's start there. Who are you?
Who am I?
Let's have a bit of energy about us, shall we? Come on, Sav. What's going on?
I'm intrigued just to sit
What's
down,
going on? Where were
relax
you
in and get
born?
to know him.
I was born in the University College Hospital.
And he vowed never to go back to university again.
Yes, I did. I'm not going to disclose the year.
What do you mean you're not going to disclose the year?
Shall I disclose the year?
Yeah, definitely.
1996.
1996.
Oh, there it is.
Right.
There it is.
Finally.
He's close.
He disclosed it. You now know how old I am. But I was born there, grew up for the first 2 years of my life in Hampstead. So,
Were you born with the beard?
yeah.
Should we get Miffin? Joe, do you want to
Do you wanna
switch?
swap out with?
But no, so I was born there, spent the first 2 years of my life in Hampstead,
This is North London, isn't it?
North London.
For people
well,
not familiar.
actually West. Hampstead's technically
is it classed as
West
yeah?
London.
Okay.
I'd assume, really, because it's near Primrose Hill, isn't it?
London,
Okay.
the capital of England, for anyone that's not in the UK right now.
Good
So-
to have
really.
Joe here. Good to have him here.
Good stuff.
Good to have him in the building.
So yeah, spent the first 2 years there, and then
He's in one of them moods.
I'm back.
yeah, and then we moved when I was about 3 years old. We moved further north towards Muswell Hill. Not quite. Well, it was kind of Muswell Hill. It was just on the outskirts.
And when you
I was
say
about
we,
3.
this is...
This is me and my mum. So my mum and my dad. I've got a lot of questions about this actually. My mum and my dad split before I was born, as far as I'm aware. And from the time I was about 6 months, he'd be in and out. Like, I remember him. This is mad that I remember it. I still remember the first flat from when I was 2 years old. But I remember him being in the flat. And I remember.
You remember things from when you were 2?
I remember mad
like
stuff.
snapshot
What?
images.
I remember mad
Yeah,
stuff.
I got a
remember
couple of
standing
them.
up in my cot when I was 2 years
My
old.
first memory is when I was about 12.
That's from all them bloody neck nominations you were doing.
2?
Yeah, I remember some mad
Jesus.
stuff.
You not got like snapshots?
No.
No?
serious?
No.
Wow.
Yeah. So so they split, but he was still sort of in and out. When I was 3, we moved to Muswell Hill, to like what I could only really describe as a cottage. It was this tiny house in Muswell Hill. It was a nice area, and I went to a primary school called Coldfall, which I was 8 when we then moved from the house that we were in Muswell Hill to Bounds Green, which
you
is
moved
when
quite
I
a bit then.
moved quite a bit. So
Moving all over the gaff.
yeah,
I mean, in and around North and West London.
But were you
yeah.
being moved to school as well?
nah. So when I moved, it was about 8. I was about 8, and she wanted to keep me in the same school. In fact, it was interesting. My primary school, I had loads of mates in primary.
Ooh.
I was never
friends.
Yeah, good
I had some primary school friends, just as well. You got none now, have you? So.
But I was never that guy like, oh yeah, like I've got bare friends and that. But
Who is
obviously-
that guy?
Who is that
Who's
guy?
that?
Zach.
I've got
Yeah, I mean,
bare
it's
friends.
Zach.
That is Zach.
It is
yeah,
Zach.
yeah,
I got bare friends.
But like, yeah. So I was there. So the main I'd say in my upbringing, the main thing that was a change from 1 to 10 was that second move. When we moved from Muswell Hill to Bounds Green, the culture in the area is very, very, very different to Muswell Hill. Muswell was a very middle class area.
Yeah, it's quite nice, isn't it?
Yeah, it's not like Bounds Green or Green at all.
Bounds
So, like,
Green's very working class.
very working class, a lot more multicultural as
yeah.
well. You've got like a lot of Polish shops there, loads of Turks, loads of Albanians, like loads of different cultures. And it was an interesting experience for somebody who grown up predominantly white, I'd say, because again with my dad, because he was in and out, I didn't spend a lot of time with my Jamaican side. So
Your dad's full Jamaican.
my dad's full Jamaican, born there, which he didn't disclose to my mum the first time they met. He said that he was born here.
What difference would that make?
Well, it would mean that he wouldn't have a British passport, essentially, if he didn't apply for a.
So she.
He,
Were they married?
nah,
No.
they were never married. No, they were never. Nah, they were never married. But yeah, like, wouldn't make much difference. But she said, "Would you like to tell me before I sign my son's birth certificate saying we were both born here?" He was like, "Yeah, I was born in Jamaica." So there you go, Clive Medley.
And your mum's, where's your mum from?
Mum's born here.
Yeah.
She
Always London?
5th generation Londoner.
Yeah.
Yeah, 5th generation.
Old school.
So her dad, his like family spans back 5 generations. On my grandma's side, I think they came over from Wales, I believe. I think they were Welsh.
You've got ties in Wales, haven't you?
We've got, well, I used to visit there when I was younger, just because I had people who I would consider cousins. They're not actually my blood relatives, but they had a caravan on a caravan site up there. So we used to go there when I was younger.
That was my holidays growing up.
Caravan sites
Couldn't
are
afford to go away,
wavy.
so just caravans.
Are you mad?
Oh, what's it called? Barry Island?
Barry
Oh,
Island.
that's
Barry
where
Island,
Gavin and
Gavin and
Stacey
Stacey,
set.
innit?
Oh, mad.
In Wales.
I told
Caravan
you
galore.
about the Bear Grylls thing, innit? How he's got his own island off Abersock Beach. He like owns an island there. It's got like a massive, like, that's where he lives. Bear
Hey?
Grylls. Yeah.
Where Sav used to go.
Bear
So-
Grylls has got an island.
He owns his
He's
own
not that
island.
Rich, is he?
Bear Grylls is gone. Clear.
Yeah.
Is he?
Yeah.
Jeez.
There's no need for him to still be knocking about in.
He just loves it, doesn't he?
He used to mill about.
Did you see him and Warwick Davis the other day? Milling about in the middle of the forests. You know, he took Gareth Southgate the week before that.
Yeah.
Taking the old celebs on the trek. Gareth Southgate going head down a cliff was pretty jokes.
Taking all the celebs.
Yeah, you know,
And
take
Warwick
celebrities around for yeah, and Warwick Davis. But
Sorry, that's an easy joke. Sorry.
Gareth Southgate's one. He like walks off a cliff, and it guarantee you. Prediction Tomlinson's coming out again here. When England crash out of the next major tournament, it'll be a photo of Gareth Southgate head off a cliff walking down it.
Prediction Tomlinson. I like that.
Shut up, Bear Grylls. Didn't Anthony
So-
Joshua go in this thing as well?
He did. Yeah.
He
I
did,
saw
yeah,
that,
yeah.
Weirdly, I remember he was a bit funny about doing abseiling or something, wasn't he? He wouldn't go down a.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, rightly so. He is a professional athlete. If
Yeah.
he did slip and break an ankle, it wouldn't be the best PR, would it?
No, it
But
wasn't.
so, sort of caravan holidays.
Caravan holidays in Wales, but that was just because I had people that were considered family
Okay.
that used to go there for holidays, and they had a caravan there. So that there's no ties for Wales that side. But my grandma met my granddad in advertising. So
my next question to you was gonna be, because you sort of hinted around it, but I know your granddad was a big part of your life.
Yeah,
I was
yeah,
gonna say,
big
tell us
part
a
of my
little
life.
bit about your mum's mum and dad.
So my grandma was the first female copywriter in the UK.
What's the copyright for people who don't know?
You tell me. I don't actually know what the
She
official.
copies people.
I think it's like a journalist who writes, isn't it?
Essentially, but for ads.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Okay.
she was the first female copywriter in the UK.
I'm just gonna get up a definition. Cause
Yeah, get up a
we-
definition.
Because
I think it's
we
someone who
clearly
writes-
we
writes
clearly
adverts.
don't know.
Yeah,
I think
I'm
it's
not
someone
too
who writes
sure.
adverts.
Either way, they met. I can't remember. I couldn't tell you the
Yeah.
name. What's that? Go on, Myth.
Yeah, it's like a journalist.
Journalist.
Yeah.
A
Journalist
person
and
who
PR.
writes the text of advertisements or publicity material.
There you
Exactly
go.
what we said then.
Boom.
Yeah.
Decent.
So, but the first person to be doing that in the UK,
First female.
First female.
first female. I actually think that's. Do you know what? That's probably to be the first female
Mm.
in something that already exists is probably a bigger barrier breaking down
Than
than being the
of-
first, because
Essentially, yeah, definitely.
if you're the first female, you're usually talking about the barrier of a male-dominated industry as opposed to
Mm.
an industry that doesn't exist, which is a
And-
harder thing to do.
And back when they were doing it, it was very, very male dominated.
Yeah.
Very. Like my granddad,
What era is this? We're talking like
I'd say the 40s,
40s,
50s, yeah. I think he learned everything off my grandma, and then they got married and she left the workplace and he just carried on. Because that was a done thing. You know, they get married and then she'd become a housewife. That
but
was
he
just what
worked in
happened.
media as well, didn't he?
So he did, but he learned everything off her, really. So they met in the
Learners.
workplace, and then obviously the big man, Big Berry, because that's where I get my name Berry from, from my granddad,
What's his first name?
Norman.
Norman
Big
Berry.
Norman
Is this-
Berry.
There's some great names in your family.
Yeah, man.
Norman Berry.
Norman
Savile
Berry. He
Although not the best name because you can't have it on the back of a pro club shirt. You can't have Savile Berry. You can't have Berry.
the word Berry for some reason is like banned. It's that you can have some real vile words
Sorry.
on the
You
back
can't
of
have
shirts.
Berry.
What do you
can't
mean?
have
You
Berry.
can't? What do you mean?
You know, usually.
Where are you stopped?
So if you put if you have Berry as your surname in clubs, it'll change it to Smith
Yeah,
because it sees it as an offensive word.
It's
Berry?
offensive.
Really?
Yeah,
Okay,
No.
fine.
it don't even make
There you go.
sense.
You learn something new every day.
So anyway, they met each other. He was, from what I know from my mum, and obviously speaking to him, a pretty big deal in the advertising game. He had his own agency with 3 other blokes, which they then sold to a company called Ogilvy, which is now like one of the biggest advertising agencies in the world. But when he sold it to them, they moved out to New York. But at this point, him and my grandma had already split. So
Oh, so that's how you've got family in New York?
yeah,
I
no.
didn't know.
So my family in New York is on my dad's side.
Right.
If you're Jamaican, pretty much every single Jamaican person has family in Flatbush.
Yeah.
Flatbush is an area within New York where it's predominantly Caribbean, if not predominantly Jamaican.
Yeah.
And I've just got loads and loads of family in New York. In fact, one of them's over now for her birthday, but we've got 2 family chats. So on my dad's side, there's a family chat for the people in the UK, and then there's a family chat for like people in the US. I'm in both because
How have you got in both? That's
Because-
so typical Sav Berry.
because my dad had me so late on in his life. All of my first cousins who are in New York are all of a certain age.
All
But
right,
I was put in that because I'm one of the first cousins. So it's shout out my dad for having me at
I mean,
70.
you said that there's a lot of people in the chat as well.
A
Then.
lot of people. I have to mute them because it just gets to the point where it's just ping, ping, ping all the time at different times of day. Because some are in New York, some in Miami,
Yeah,
some
yeah.
in Jamaica. It's like it gets long. But yeah, so my mum and my dad. So people always ask, how did your mum and dad meet?
Yeah, I was gonna come to that in a bit.
Yeah, he basically just chirps her in a bar.
Yeah.
And was like,
Chirps for people who don't know is chatted up.
chatted up my mum in a bar. And then they hit it off.
Go on, Clive.
Go on, Clive. Clive, such a Jamaican name as well.
Mr. Medley.
So Jamaican. Clive Barrington Medley, you know.
Barrington's
Barrington.
mad. I
That's
love
such
that.
a Jamaican name.
Yeah, it is.
Barrington.
And yeah, so they had me. But before that, my dad had already had 3 kids. So I've got 3 siblings. I've got one brother who's 27, your age. I've got
Alright.
a
Dig you out
sister who's just turned 30.
My age.
And another sister who is 44,
Bab's
I
age.
believe.
I was going to go Jackson. Oh, you beat me to it. I was going to go Jackson. So 44.
Yeah, so
What
my,
was the 44, 30, and 27.
yeah. So I'm the
44
youngest.
to 30. So
He had a big break. So he, with his first wife,
wow.
he had my sister Charlotte, who I believe was 17 when she had her first kid, meaning that when I was born, she'd already had a kid. So I'm now uncle to a person who's older than me,
Yeah, that's mad.
which is another
You
weird.
were born an
kind
uncle.
Of, yeah, I was born an uncle.
How does that happen? What?
So my sister,
You ever
who
have an
was
argument with
44,
kids, you'd be like, well,
had a
I'm your
kid when
uncle.
she was 17, right? I was born 96. He was born in 94. So he's my nephew, but he's 2
younger.
years older.
All right, okay. I
Madness.
don't understand at all. But we'll get there eventually. It'll come to me in a second. Bit slow today.
Don't worry about it.
Sav's older sister
Yeah.
had a child before
Yeah.
Sav was born,
Yeah.
making Sav
So I'm
Right,
uncle to
yeah.
the
younger
kid.
than
Yeah.
his nephew.
I've got you now.
How I just said exactly what he said.
Yeah, but I wasn't listening to Sam.
So I was talking Jamaican. Don't worry, it's cool.
Mm.
But yeah, so that's me basically with the upbringing. But it was like I was saying, it was funny because throughout the entire first 12 to 14 years of my life, it was predominantly a white upbringing.
Yeah.
So what my mum did, which I love her for, bless her, was she made sure I knew where I come from, because in her head, I think she made the decision that she didn't want me to be, I hate the word and I hate the term, but an Oreo or a wagon wheel milk, like you know, like I wouldn't use the term, but people would describe people as that.
Well, unless you're on a podcast.
Well, no, but to get, you know, what I'm
we know
trying
what
to
you're saying.
say.
We know what you're saying. A term that basically is used to
Say a black man who is a white black man basically.
Yeah.
Which I don't really understand the concept. There was like a big thing in school where people used to say, if you was well spoken or you had any knowledge on anything, people used to say, "Why are you acting white?" And it used to really irritate me because people used to connote whiteness with intelligence.
Yeah.
Which is cool, but then you're trying to say that in order to be intelligent, you got to be white.
Yeah.
So what you're trying to say that black people are intrinsically stupid,
Yeah.
but we were the ones saying it.
Yeah.
So it was just madness. But anyway,
Some of the thickest people I know are white.
I mean,
Why are you putting him in? Look at the myth. You don't even know where he is.
You look like you're trying to do a DJ set down there.
look at
don't you?
ones and twos.
On the ones and twos.
In
Actually,
shorts in winter.
Right, random question before we come on to that, just because of
Yeah,
something you
go
hit
on.
before. I'm intrigued. I've never asked you this. So, just with your grandfather,
Yeah,
he learned everything about the industry he ended up working in through his wife.
yeah.
What did he do before that? Do you know?
He was in the Korean War, so he basically.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so-
Yes, I did know that.
Yeah, so he was in the Korean
So he was in
War
service.
before that, and he had applied before he'd been called up to go to university in Cambridge. But before he'd left the war, he made the decision he wasn't going to go to university. He'd seen too much. He just thought, I can't go and study, just look at books. It's
Okay.
so he then came back and then went into the workplace, but he made enough money through the sale of the agency and then being made an employee of Ogilvy to move to New York, and that's when he became a madman, if that makes sense.
Madison Avenue.
Madison
right?
Avenue.
Yeah. Okay.
So
Not as in.
no.
I've never watched the show. Some
Oh, you
people
know,
at home won't
it's-
have either. Basically,
it's
Mad Men's a series about
Mad Men is
advertising in
based,
the
but it's
60s.
based.
Yeah.
They're called Mad Men because they were the men that worked on Madison Avenue, which
Yeah.
was basically like the Silicon Valley of advertising.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Yeah, and he, from what I understand, had a pretty sweet setup there, was making a lot of money. But that's where him and my mum's relationship sort of started. It didn't go down, but it kind of, when you're not in the same country as your daughter, it's never going to be
distance,
easy,
yeah.
exactly. And I think the split up and the way it happened with my grandparents left my mum in a pretty awkward spot because they were living in a really nice area within London. I think they were living in Kensington. And obviously when your dad's a high roller, he's got a lot of money, things are sweet, and then he's gone,
Yeah.
and your life changes completely. So that was like definitely a pivotal moment in my mum's life. And I think in like, obviously as a knock-on effect in my life as well, I think if my grandparents were still together, both of them have passed away, but if they were still together when I was born, my life would definitely have been far different
Yeah.
to the way it turned out, because I would have seen my granddad a lot more. By the time I was born, he'd moved back to the UK, and he was living in Dorset, I believe. Not down your country.
Way my way by.
But
West
you saw
Country.
him quite a bit.
I saw him a fair.
Because
fair
I
amount.
the reason I said obviously that tell us about your granddad, because you've told me a few stories about your granddad.
Yeah, big part of my life, but mainly because my dad wasn't there growing
Okay.
up. I think if my dad was there, then my granddad wouldn't have had to have played a bigger role as he did.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
because he wasn't, he was sort of the go-to.
Mm.
I had luckily a lot of positive male role models in my life, like my uncle Tony, my uncle Nick, my uncle Dee. Like there was a lot of them that were there, and were there to give me guidance. But I think just because of who my granddad was, and how authoritative he was as a human being, it was just
It's a go-to.
It was a gravitate. Yeah, exactly. And I'm very, I wouldn't know it, but my mum always says you're very like him as a person. Very stubborn when it comes to certain things and hard-headed. I don't listen to people when I should, which is very much like him as a person.
Sav can be.
A
He
bit
can be
hard-headed.
very hard-headed at
Yeah,
times.
a little bit. It's one of my faults.
When he's got his head set on he wants to do something a certain way,
Yeah.
i.e. getting lunch.
Yeah.
Sav wants a burger, we're getting a burger.
Well,
Chips again.
I mean,
Not anymore though. New year, new Sav.
New
innit?
year, new
new
Sav.
Sav.
2019 six-pack vibes.
do you want to tell them about the bet?
No, not yet, because we haven't actually worked out the specifics. We'll come back to the bet another day.
Don't try and
Okay.
get funny with the specifics.
There
It's on
are a lot
camera.
of specifics, because what you would term a six-pack, I might not determine a six-pack. Is it got to be a six-pack on a skinny man,
Okay,
or is it
d-
got to be a
without-
Sav with a
without
six-pack?
context,
The
this
fact we're
means
talking
nothing.
about it, yeah.
Without you explaining it now, if it's
But we
what we're
will,
gonna do,
we will talk about
yeah,
it.
we
though.
will talk about it.
We
at
will
some
talk
point.
about it
We'll
at some
talk
point.
about
There
it.
is a
Anyway, let's
wager.
go back. 14 years old you are now. Just
14
moved out.
yeah.
Moved into Wood Green.
Yes. That's when I...
Bounds Green.
Sorry,
Well, yeah,
Bounds
Bounds Green, yeah. So
Next door.
the school I went to, Alexandra Park School, was an extremely mixed school as far as the nationalities, demographics, but also class-wise. So,
Really?
yeah, because you had... The catchment area was so massive that you'd get kids from Muswell Hill, kids from Wood Green, but also kids from Tottenham and Hornsey. So all of the surrounding areas.
See, I find North is more like that
Yeah.
to me than South East where I'm from, because
Yeah.
where I'm from, if you're in a rough area,
Yeah.
you have to drive 20 minutes before it gets
To a school.
nice.
Oh, right, okay.
Like before it starts to get nicer.
Yeah.
In
yeah.
North London, it seems like you can walk one road, one end to the other, and it changes.
Muswell Hill to Wood Green is like 7-10 minutes.
Yeah.
Something like that, but completely different ends of this class spectrum.
Yeah.
You've got like an underclass in Wood Green and an upper middle class in Muswell Hill. So it was an interesting pool of people that we had in that school, especially because they were all from different races. So you had like a lot of Turks, a lot of Turkish people, a lot of black kids. I'd actually say it was majority ethnic minorities.
Yeah.
Realistically, I think probably 35-40% white, and then everything else
Yeah.
ethnic minorities, which has changed a lot since I've left. Within about 3 years or 4 years of me being there, they started to like the catchment area started shrinking.
Okay.
So you had a lot of the kids from Tottenham wouldn't be able to get into the school anymore. Same with Wood Green, and same with Hornsey. It was really only Bounds Green and Muswell Hill that could then fit in the catchment area. And Bounds Green it's sort of a nowhere place. It's in between Muswell Hill and Tottenham, and Muswell Hill and Wood Green, and it's not working class, it's not middle class, it's just pottering along.
It's Bounds Green's one of those
weird
places. I know it
Yeah.
as a tube station, and I know that
That's all it
I know
is.
I drive through it to go to different
Yeah.
things or whatever.
That's all it is. It's
But
just a tube.
It's like if I was ever driving towards Finsbury Park, I'll go through it as well.
Yeah.
But there's no thing there. There's not a restaurant or a certain thing, or whatever that people know of. It's like, oh, it's in Bounds Green.
Yeah,
It's just like a parade of shops, and that's it.
So where did you fit in school? Were you a sportsman? Were you a musician? Were you a what?
It was
did you
always
do at
it was
school?
always sportsman. Always from primary school, it was sportsman. Really, I think from the age of 10, a coach came to my school and said, "Oh, we really like you as a player. Do you
Football,
want to come football-wise? Yeah. Do you want to come and play football for my team in Edmonton?" So I was like, "Yeah, cool." And actually, now I think back, that was probably when I found my love for football, really. Because I always played it and I was like, yeah, this is wicked. But nobody introduced me to the sport. My granddad was never into football. He was always a rugby player. He played for the London Wasps. All my uncles weren't really football players or like into sports like that. So really it was out of my own kind of trying out the sport myself that I found that I really liked the sport. So when he came down, he said, "Yeah, we really like you. Do you want to come and play?" I said to my mum, "Oh, like this guy said this." She said, "Yeah, cool. Let's if you want to do it, we can do it. And I played for this team in Edmonton up until I was about 13, 12. Actually, that's a lie.
What, and then left
12.
them? Left them?
Left them for a team in Tottenham.
Left them in the scrappy. That's so you, innit?
Left them for a team
always
in
climbing
Tottenham.
the ladder.
I had to, bro. This team was mad. So there's a team in Tottenham called Broadwater Farm, which I've mentioned it before, but it's a very rough area within Tottenham, Broadwater Farm. It's an estate which is quite well known just because of the riots in the 80s. There was a lot of riots there in the 80s. It's just not. It's quite a poverty-stricken area. So going there was, again, another eye-opener for me, because having lived in predominantly middle-class areas, I'd say, like, I had a comfy upbringing.
Yeah.
To go then and play sports in an area where the leisure centre was the only place where you probably wouldn't get mugged, that was a big eye-opener for me. Big eye-opener, because it's one thing hearing about it on the news, and it's one thing living in it, and they're living in it every single day, and I was living in it 3 times a week. So it wasn't a case of being scared of it, because I knew that I was all right there because of who I was with, and I was playing football, and it was all right. But it was an eye opener.
So did you ever get mugged?
No, never, not once. No. But that was more. I think that's more just because I was smart with the way I was as a person. When I was in secondary school, a lot of my peers and the people that I was in school with were up to silliness, up to doing whatever they wanted to do. But I always knew that wasn't something that enticed me, and more time I was just, why am I going to go and do that? And I put that down to my mum.
When you say silliness, what do you mean? Because my silliness down in Devon is not the same as
when I mean
London,
silliness,
I don't think Sav's mates were out ratting. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, exactly.
I had a lot of Albanian mates, and I had a lot of
Don't know what that means.
well
I love this walking around.
I don't know what you want me to say.
I want you to snitch, Savilberry. I want you to snitch. Don't say any names, but you can say actions people do.
I had a lot of like
some
people
less than
who was
desirable
like
choices.
some people were on road doing whatever they were doing, and gangs. Like there was times we would go to a school in the area and just stand outside the school for no reason. Like we would just go there.
Why was that a thing?
Because we used to go. We used to go there. I'm gonna go buy a puffer jacket on Friday, and I'm obviously gonna go and stand outside the school on the next Monday. Cool. Went down, bought my little night jacket. Yeah. Went and stand. I can't remember what the name of the school was. Broomfield, I think it was called. This
What
school.
were you doing there?
Nothing. Just standing there trying to be Broomfield. Yeah. We were just trying to be intimidated.
Who do I know that went to Broomfield School? Don't worry, carry on.
But it's that north anyway. So we've gone down there, and literally just nothing's happening. We're just posturing, like that sort of thing. But then there was obviously as we got older, there was more serious things that would happen, and the elders within the area would sort of say, right, you got to come and do this now. And I made sure I stayed away from that, because I knew that if I got into that, that's when it starts becoming silly. Like some of the things you do in school were just silly and embarrassing, like you say, and you can look back and think, how stupid was that? But some of the other things that they pull you in for and say, right, all of that's dead, come and do this for me, that's when it can start becoming life-changing in a bad way.
So did any of your friends ever go down that path?
100%. And I've still got mates today who are in jail. I know people who've got killed. It's North London is not a great place as far as opportunities for people in the areas where I grew up, mainly because myself, I had a good mum at home to say to me, don't do that, come home, here's a PS3, PS2, whatever it might be. Yeah. Sit down, play your games, because she knew the school I was going to.
You're still using the same PlayStation now. Where it looks the one you bought in last night. State of it.
Decent. Yeah, it is quite old, that one. Anyway, one thing I would say though is that even though Northcote, it's got like a reputation, it's also one of the best places I could have grown up, because it set me up to interact with so many different people from different backgrounds. I can have a conversation with a Turk and get where he's coming from. I can have a conversation with a guy from East Africa and know where he's coming from. I can have a conversation with an Eastern European and understand their life or their struggle, because I knew so many people from that background. So North London's a nice place, but it's also a place that you've got to be on your P's and Q's as well.
So you went to that school until you were how old? 18? Sixth form?
So I did my first year of AS, and I realised it just weren't for me. It just, the education system on a whole, every report I'd get back at the end of the year would be, he's coasting, he's not putting himself into it, he's coasting, he's not kicking into gear. I was always a bright kid and fairly smart. I just never liked the education system.
You'd get yourself all right and then just take it. Yeah.
I would just be like, well, as long as I get a C or a C or a B, I'll be fine.
Yeah.
Why am I pushing for an A? Yeah. I don't need an A. I always thought GCSEs were redundant because they only take you to the next step, which was A levels. And it wasn't until I got to the end of GCSEs and realised I hadn't sorted out anything for me to do after GCSEs. I realised I need to go and do my A levels. So then I was like, cool.
What ASs did you take?
I did media, history, religious studies, and English literature, I believe.
Jesus.
And so, how long were you doing them for? Did you complete the AS?
I'd completed the AS, not very well.
For anyone not in the UK system, after you finish secondary school, you either go to a sixth form or a college. But if you pick to do A levels, which is basically one of the qualifications that can take you to uni, the AS is a 2-year course usually, and the AS is the first year, and then an A2 gives you a full A level.
It's
Doesn't
between the ages of 16 and 18.
Yeah.
That
And
education.
it's now compulsory to stay in education until you're 18, whereas when
Is it really?
Yeah.
now that I think I
I
was
didn't
the
know
last
that.
year. I was the last year that you could leave if you wanted to.
But so,
You have
sorry,
to be
it's a
doing
slight vary off it. So
Yeah.
does that make GCSEs entirely redundant then?
No,
If you have to get through to
No.
college,
no, because so like for
Because
example,
otherwise you can end up going. You might end up being forced to do an apprenticeship.
yeah.
oh okay,
But you have to do something.
You have to
be
yeah.
doing something.
You're fixed for those next 2 years still.
Yes,
okay.
you have to. And I think I was the
It's not
last year
bad.
that was
apprenticeship
possible.
still good.
Yeah,
it's
definitely.
quality way to
I
do
think
things.
it's a good idea. Although I wouldn't be where I am now if that was still the case. Because I would have had to have finished the 2 years. But when I'd done my AS, and it just wasn't. It was an eye opener because I then realised that it was getting serious. Like life was starting to be like, okay, well, you think about what you're doing.
Yeah.
Otherwise, things will start going tits up. However, it is also the best mistake I've made, if that makes sense.
But at what stage, when you were at sort of between 16 and 18, did you see your friends going off and doing, or some of your friends go off and start doing some things that you thought, that's not the route I want to go down?
13.
13 years old,
13.
you'd say?
Yeah, because there was like...
That's so young, man. 13.
Bro, there's kids nicking peds on estates from 11 years old, man. That's just... Even younger than
Yeah,
that.
that's
Even younger than
the
that.
thing is, to be honest, I'd say it goes as young as, probably younger now, but I wouldn't be surprised if you said 11. The second you hit secondary school, certain kids want clout.
That's it.
And the way to do that in secondary school is to do stuff that the elders want you to do.
That's what... So, like, when I'm saying like, elders will come to you and say, go and beat him up. Or go and do something even worse to him. Or go and do something even worse to him. It's like...
Did you ever have anybody come up to you and ask you to do that?
Yeah, but...
What did they ask you to do?
Don't worry. Well, actually, I can say
You
because I
can
didn't do it. They was like, it wasn't like the even worse, but it was like, it was like, oh, here's a compass. Go and just like do a madness to that kid over there. But it wasn't like a...
Who was the kid? Was he in
was
your
like
year,
another
or?
kid. No, he was
Why
like...
are you trying to get him to say names?
No,
No, I'm not trying to get him to say names,
No,
but
no,
it's an interesting story.
He's like a kid in... I can't remember if he was in the year below or the year above, but he wasn't my age.
Did you know him?
Nah. And that's why I was like, well, I don't even... What? For what? And he was...
That's mad. He wanted
kid
you
was
to go
like-
and whack
But the
him.
thing
You
is...
also got to remember that as much as they seem like adults at this point, the people older than you asking you to do this stuff
16.
are 15, 16-year-old kids.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I
So
get that, but it's still very crazy.
It's the blind leading the blind in a way.
It's nuts. And
What was the worst story you heard of somebody getting asked to do something?
Sorry. Oh, okay.
the worst story...
Joe learns about London.
Well,
any-
I
area
reckon
that's not-
most of the listeners out there will not have experienced anything like this.
That's a fair point.
That's a
That
fair
is
point.
a fair point.
I mean, my school in particular wasn't as bad as some of the surrounding schools. So
But you must have still known kids in those surrounding schools.
yeah. So like, for example, there's schools in Tottenham where kids were caught with handguns in the school. And that sounds ridiculous. That sounds like something out of a story. That's something out of Top Boy. But that's serious. Like, that happened. And even in my school...
And older students had given them guns to say, go and kill that lad.
Or even just thought that they had to take their older brother's gun for protection or whatever it might be. There's been kids in schools in Tottenham with knives and guns and weapons, like, for the longest time. It's like I said, there was riots in the 80s in Tottenham. There was riots recently in Tottenham from the Mark Duggan thing. It's an area there's a lot of tension in Tottenham, a lot of tension between Tottenham and other areas within that North London area, which is why it was quite difficult growing up in school, because you had such a big catchment area. So you had kids in there from Tottenham, kids in there from Wood Green, and kids in there from Hornsey, which are all areas that don't like each other in North London, meaning that there would be certain areas of the school for certain students that you couldn't really go because
prison yard. Sounds like a prison yard.
I mean, but
that's
you
it.
Could
Kind
draw
of does
similarities.
replicate that,
You
doesn't
could
it?
draw
Yeah.
similarities, but it was. Yeah,
Not what I know what a prison yard's like, by the way. I'm just literally just taking that from the longest yard and a few other prison films.
Everything he's saying
Like-
is all from film.
Do you know what I
isn't
mean? Literally everything I'm saying here is from either a film or BBC News. So I'm trying to find out my own information, and hopefully you guys are as well. 'Cause I don't have a clue about any of this.
It's good. It's good that you're asking questions. I think, honestly, there was nothing mad that happened to me personally when I was growing up in secondary school, which I'm thankful for, because a lot of my peers, it did. Like, there was always some kid with 50 guys waiting for him outside of school. Like, for some reason, there was a massive park, a huge park that my school was in. My school was in a park, so there was always some group of lads waiting for a kid or another group of lads after school every day. Every day there was something. Even if it was girls, there was something.
But was it like you boys, where you just stood there in your puffer jackets, or was it actually a tear up?
It was a bit of both. I think a lot of it was just poses.
Yeah.
And then you get like certain people where, cool, something's actually gonna happen. Like something's gonna happen. It got to the point where there was a policeman in my school, like 24/7. 24/7 there was police on site.
It's weird, isn't it? Because it's funny because we did my Get to Know the other day.
Yeah,
and me and you have spoke about a lot of this stuff when we're
24/7
not on
police
camera.
on site. You mad?
But mine had the same.
Yeah,
My school had the same thing. And it's weird that our schools, although at complete separate ends,
Yeah.
had a lot of similarities of
Lot of
how
similarities.
some stuff went, how stuff went.
Yeah. I think that I'd never seen a policeman in a school until I'd gone to secondary school,
And both similarly as well. We both kind of
So
stayed
you
away
hope
from
so.
it.
Imagine a policeman
we-
in a primary school.
Yeah,
we
no, that's
we
not-
both
not unheard of. Though.
in both situations we both kind of managed to just stay away from it all.
Yeah, I think
you were probably closer to it than I was.
I think that's more just because I didn't have a point of reference. You had Joe. Do you know what I'm saying? I didn't have that point of reference to say, right, like, don't do that.
You can do it this way.
Yeah, or you know what I'm trying to say. So
Yeah.
it was more just, like I knew out of my friends who was good people's and who wasn't. From as young as 8, I knew who was going to be in jail and who wasn't. Like I've got friends now. Like shout out my boy Lewis if he's listening from wherever he
From
is.
D-Wing. D-Wing.
He
Cell number 302. Lewis.
from as young as like, how old are you in year 3?
Me.
Seven.
Sorry, excuse me.
7 or
Young.
something.
Yeah.
I knew that he like.
You knew he was going to be in cell block D. See,
Like he's like a he's good people.
7 to 8, isn't it?
7 to what?
I was just trying to work it out. 4 to 5 is reception.
yeah,
5 to
6 or 7.
Yeah.
But you knew he was going to be in jail from that young.
Yeah, because there's like kids who just have that streak, an unruly streak, and in that environment, if you have an unruly streak, that then translates into you doing something even more unruly when you're growing up.
Kind
Does
of
that
like
make
there was kids that I was in school with that just you could have called it early, but ended up in youth offenders.
Yeah.
Or for me, it was ended up in Feltham or whatever it was.
Yeah,
or,
yeah, exactly. Feltham's like the main. Feltham prison is like a big youth offenders
yeah.
prison in the UK. But
it's funny that I've never thought about it like that. But
What?
when I think about the kids that did,
you knew
the ones that I
you
went
knew they were
primary
gonna do.
school with,
Yeah,
yeah. I'll be honest. There's a couple that didn't, that I would have called it for,
yeah,
and didn't. So fair play to them.
yeah.
But
fair
there
play.
are a couple that, yeah, it's like you could have called it from day one.
You know, you can just see that it's going down that route, and unless they've got the right people around them, which often they don't, that's where it ends up, which is unfortunate. But
So anyway, you decide to drop out of AS, A
Yeah.
levels in school.
just divert back from prison.
But if you had made the decision to drop out AS,
yeah,
what was your plan? Like, did you just think, I'm just going to drop out and sit at home?
I didn't really have a plan. I wanted to like the plan in my head, which I don't know why I had it, but was to finish my A levels and then go to uni and do something, probably English or something media.
So you had planned to go uni?
I didn't know what I wanted to do, and it made the most sense to do that because I was always good at English.
Yeah.
I could
Okay.
coast in English and get an A.
Mm.
Like, it was just the easiest subject for me. So I thought it makes sense for me to go and do that. Media was like the other one where I thought I could go and do that. All of my family were in advertising.
So why did you decide not to?
Because after having done my AS, I passed, not well. I got not good grades at all. And I was like, I'm not going to go back and do the second year of that because I'm not going to be able to get a good grade anyway with already having a rubbish AS. And not only that, but I just hated it. The only thing I enjoyed about sixth form was the freedom. So after failing and my mum sort of having a little bit of a panic, thinking, right, so he's actually effed it now. He's done something. What's he done here? I thought, well, let me just try and get my foot in the door in something media related.
When did you pass your driving test? Because that was a big step for you, wasn't it?
So
yeah.
as soon as I didn't fail, but as soon as let's call it a fail. As soon as I failed my AS,
So 17.
17, I was like, well, I need to get my car. I need to be active.
Because I remember, you've always said that was like your backup was, if I can drive, I can work.
Yeah.
Because you could do.
whatever
Uber
it might
driver
be.
Sav.
Oh, can you imagine? Oh, mate, I'll be doing a madness. But yeah, like as soon as I failed my AS, I was like, get the driver's license, and then try and get my foot in the door. And luckily, one of a close family friend, very close family friend, knew Helena from Sunset and Vine, and said, "Can you please?"
Sunset and Vine, for everybody who doesn't know.
They do know now because he spoke.
Oh, yeah.
about
We
it
talked
to
about
them.
mine, but if
Probably should listen to it, I'll be honest, probably should listen to it.
For any of you that only watch Savs Get to Know, which is probably most of you, here come the 10k views.
Brilliant.
It's probably we said it before, probably the biggest sports production company in the UK.
Yeah, I'd say so.
I think they are the biggest.
Just ahead of it, IMG. I think they are.
Like an independent.
Yeah,
obviously,
independent.
you know.
Yeah. So they then took me on for a couple of weeks working as a researcher, doing a work experience there, and it's a sort of snowballed. There was a snowball effect. I don't want to go into it too much because we went into it on your one.
Well, I
but
think we
there was
went into mine, so I think to have it from your side is.
But when did you learn to edit?
So this was the thing. So
because that's the thing, your actual in that job experience is completely different to mine.
yeah. So I did like 6 months, well 3 months,
You
as a
worked
researcher
On what?
on the Olympics.
No, before that.
No, that was it. I did 3 months on the Olympics and then I went to BT.
Oh, then you went to BT.
Yeah,
Sorry,
so I did 3
Oh,
months.
of course, you came back, didn't you?
Yeah. So I did 3 months on the Olympics,
Which is where we met.
which is where we first met. It was a wicked first job. The week before that, I was in a Carphone warehouse trying to get a job. So imagine going from that and then to, you know what I mean?
Sell me a phone.
Being a research. Yeah, it's that sort of.
No,
that
seriously,
sort
sell
of,
me a
no,
phone.
shut up. But no, so from going to that and then working in as a researcher in a TV broadcast. Why are you laughing?
I'm laughing because he's being annoying, right? And then
Yeah.
you carry on talking, and I just glanced at him, and he was trying to catch his eye on his mic, and I was just like, "What is he doing?" He's just sitting there going, he's like this.
Stop interrupting his stories, Dave.
Right.
I can't remember what it was. Yeah, so working there for 3 months was like the best job in the world, right? It was like my first ever job. So before that, I'd done like a week or 2 weeks work experience in an ad agency. And even before I got into media or did AS or anything like that, I always had it in my head that eventually, when everything was said and done, I'd be in advertising. Because everybody in my family was in advertising.
It just seemed like
Everybody.
the way, yeah.
Like my grandma, my granddad, my mum, my cousins, even my great granddad, was in advertising.
Madness.
So I just thought, I'm going to be an advertiser.
I'll be an advert.
I'll be an advert. I mean, I
And
already
you are,
am that.
mate.
Come on.
Giacomo.
Done now.
We'll come to that. Someone's asked a question about that.
Wicked. So that was an amazing first introduction to the workplace. I literally had no clue what it would be like. I didn't know how a working environment would feel. And obviously, that being the place I was going to as the first place I was working, it was mad. The people we were working with were real cool, inspirational people.
And it was a well-oiled machine as well, wasn't
Very well-oiled machine.
it? It ran
like-
proper.
I'm not like
The whole
trying to-
company.
Yeah, definitely. One of the things I'd say about the transition then to BT is that you see an even bigger machine at work, because I think the year I was working for BT was the first year that they had the rights to the Premier League, so there was like a massive.
So like the launch of BT Sport, wasn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it was like a massive operation going on there. I was working in essentially a huge warehouse. Did you ever go to the?
It was
BT?
The BT
Stratford,
Sports
wasn't it?
Studios, mate, are
Bro,
ridiculously
It was
big.
Stratford though, wasn't it?
Stratford.
No, it's a plane hangar, isn't it?
Let
That's
me-
what it is. It's a
let-
hangar from
Yeah, let me ask, because I remember. So we used to manage their social here,
Yeah.
and I can't remember who it was. I think it was Josh Fleming. It'd be the second podcast in a row he gets a shout out,
Yeah.
and he's already thanked me for the last one. Used to go over and do some stuff for us over there, and he said that it was a weird place. He said because it's basically he said it was computer wise everywhere, because it was full of desks
They
with
had no
computers for
structures.
people to work, but no wires and stuff were like housed. It was just
It was all.
open wires for the computers and cables and everything, just all over the place.
It
Which he
is
said,
so
imagine
big, though.
you're
it is.
talking hundreds of computers for people to work. That's messy.
But the
he said it
actual
just looked
The actual studio is
huge.
insane.
insane. It's
Incredible.
like a plane hangar. It's like Boeing.
It's even bigger.
747.
Yeah.
Like the place is called the International Broadcast Centre, I believe it's called. It's
It was
based in
set up
Stratford.
for the Olympics, wasn't it?
It was, and then obviously BT took over part of it. There was another part of it which we didn't use, but the studios were there as well. But working there was, again, the team we were working at Sunset and Vine was quite small. There was about 6 or 7, which felt big. You go over to there and there's teams of 25, teams of 30 working on week in, week out production of each Premier League match that was.
There's
on
people that
that was
don't know
broadcast
each other
on.
within their team. Yeah.
Right.
Madness.
So it was a very different working experience to the first one, because I felt a lot more insignificant. There was more of an emphasis on the top dogs. Everybody knew the chain of command, whereas I feel like in my first working experience there was much more of a family feel to it, as in everyone's pulling in the same direction. Whereas over there it was definitely a I don't like the term, but dick swinging contest, where everyone was like trying to be the next big one, trying to be the big don.
And what were you doing there?
Running.
Yeah.
And again, as a runner in a place like that,
Lowest to the low.
oh mate, like some of it, I was quite lucky. I didn't really ever get it, but some of the runners there, absolutely terrible experiences they had.
You don't need to give names,
Yeah, man.
but just tell us
Tell
a
that
couple
one
of the
story.
requests, because so give us the
I'm
the
not going
one
to say the
about-
name of
Don't say the
of
name,
guy.
don't
the
say the name.
specific thing.
Just
Yeah,
say-
I'll
just
say
say-
what it was that
So
happened.
just
Mr.
imagine.
Mr. X.
Let me just say before he says this as well, right? So where this is in Stratford, it's set up for the Olympics, but it's kind of an industrial-looking area that there isn't much around it.
Not
Yeah.
at all.
There's nothing around it.
There's
It's not like
nothing
there's
there.
shops and stuff.
The
so
closest shops are Westfield.
Westfield,
Those
which
are the
is-
closest shops, which is
and
a way away. You've got
it's
to get
a
a shuttle
bit-
bus
yeah.
to there. Essentially felt like working in a rat run, because there was no windows there.
Yeah.
There was nothing. You
Yeah.
didn't feel human. Sometimes I'd go there, do a 12-hour shift from 7 to 7. I wouldn't see sunlight for 4 days.
Yeah.
Because you're leaving and getting
Yeah.
there so late. It's
And
like-
so you're running,
Yeah.
and someone asks you for what?
Oh no. So there's that one.
Basically, by the way, people don't know a runner is somebody who goes and picks up requests, because you might it's most junior person on set who
Yeah.
basically is there to facilitate the needs
Yeah.
of the more senior
It's-
people and
it's
the,
what do
and the
people
talent
need.
on screen.
Yeah.
They
That's
So
get what people need.
So if
Exactly.
let's say Rio Ferdinand needs a cup of tea, a runner will go and get him a cup of tea and bring him back a cup of tea.
That's exactly
what it is.
exactly the role. There was more to it, to an extent, and I'll be honest, I actually can't remember what there was that I used to do more than that. But there was a lot of other stuff that we'd have to do, like set up the studios, set up the green rooms and whatnot. Anyway, So the one that was ridiculous, the request I got from a certain presenter was for him he asked me if I could get him a passion fruit, right? So I'm in the middle of nowhere.
So specific.
I'm in the middle of nowhere. Like, when I can't stress to you enough, I have to go and get a shuttle bus to go and even potentially find
it's also
a passion
like
fruit.
It's such a specific fruit. It's like, where in Westfield sells a passion fruit?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
really?
Yeah. So there was that one, which was very irritating. And even when I see him to this day, it's like, I just don't want to see his face. Because why?
Passion fruit.
And then there was another one, but this wasn't me. There was another runner there. I won't say his name either. There was I won't actually say the show, but there was a show that they used to do very early in the morning.
Between the hours of.
They used to do a show very early in the morning, and there was a presenter on the show who was, I think he's quite well known for this sort of thing. He's not a particularly nice fella.
Yeah.
And he asked for a cup of tea from this runner, said he wanted it with X amount of milk, and just was very specific with how he wanted the cup of tea. The runner then went to go and make the cup of tea, came back with it. For whatever reason, I don't think there actually had to be one. I think it was just a show of force and a show of power why the guy did what I'm about to say. But he took a sip of the drink, then spat it out on the floor and told the runner to clean it up because it wasn't to how he wanted it.
That is absolutely disgraceful. That runner should have whacked that presenter in the mouth.
That's the level of like, bleep this, but that's the level of that we had to deal with.
That is outrageous.
It was absolute madness.
So from like people like that, who we won't say the name of, who was the best to work with?
I was going to say. Or just best experiences you have with people.
Jake Humphreys is a delight.
Yeah?
Like, on my first or second day,
Bamzuki.
Good to hear the name.
Shout out. Of Bamzuki fame, Jake
Bamzuki.
Yeah.
Google it.
So he just as far as like a nice person, I've never obviously
That's
worked
so
with him
good to
directly.
hear because he seems decent.
Yeah, like just on my first or second day.
He treated them robots well, even though they were 3G animated.
On my first or second day, he came up to me and said, "I've not seen your face around here before. What's your name?" I was like, "Oh, my name's Sav. I've just started running." He was like, "Oh, really nice to meet you. Hope to see you around." Just
enough.
that,
just recognition.
Just that was like, oh, that's like a nice thing to say from somebody who you see on screen a lot. It's like, oh, that's Jake Humphreys, wicked. Another one was Owen Hargreaves.
Yeah,
big Owen,
nice bloke. I played table tennis against Owen Hargreaves. He was unbelievable.
Meanwhile, someone's waiting for a cup of tea.
Yeah,
so playing table tennis.
Unbelievable guy. Yeah, mad skills on the table tennis.
Footballers do though, don't they?
Yeah,
so
they
do is play that in FIFA.
There was like an area we used to walk through. So there's like a canteen, and on the sides they had like a football table and like 3 table tennis tables in a row, and you just walk through. I remember on my first day, I walked through, and Rio and Michael Owen had just knocked it. I was like, this is mad. Like you don't think in your head that you'd see somebody on your first day.
Yeah.
Michael Owen and bloody Rio Ferdinand playing table tennis. It doesn't even equate to you when you're that age.
Just a side story of something like that.
Yeah.
I remember the first time me and Joe were ever taken to Sky Sports studios. And you remember because we had a couple of weird conversations with a person that day, but we're walking through and they said to us, okay, we're about to go into the set of Sky Sports News now. Not onto the set, but if you watch Sky Sports News, obviously behind them is the office, and it's real. Some of those are fake. I think ITN's is a green screen, but Sky Sports is real. So they just said, just when you walk past, because you'll walk past where the camera is, just don't look at the camera and try not to swear to yourselves or whatever. So we're like, oh, okay, cool, fine. And I just remember us walking through, and there's about 5 of us being led through. And as we walk, the camera's there, and I remember me and Joe both just walking, staring dead down the camera, like not on purpose, by accident, and just going, fucking looking like straight down the left.
Oh my God.
And then just going, oh crap, get out. Yeah. And then going back home and like trying to see if there's any way you can find old hours of Sky Sports News to try and work out if we were on it. But
I mean,
you can't.
It goes both ways. Though. There's like certain people who you meet and you thought were going to be nice and are just not. Not at all.
Who?
Nah, man. You can't do that.
Oh,
you can't do
disappointing.
that.
But just in terms of anecdotes, before we go from that, just who did you walk in on having a poo?
Oh God. So I'll give the full backstory.
Give the full backstory, yeah.
So when we were runners, there were these big, massive crates of water, Costco water, and we'd have to put them in each green room, right? There was a toilet in the main green room. So I'd put the crates of water down, and I needed a loo. So like there was nobody in the green rooms, and everybody was already on air. I didn't know that there was anybody else in the green rooms.
So you thought it was empty?
So I thought it was empty. So I didn't even bother knocking on the door on the toilet. Just bowl straight in.
But you would assume it would be locked if need be anyway.
Yeah. Bowl straight in. Neil Warnock doing a poo.
What did he say?
I could just went, oh god, and it just sort of like, he just like and I was like, oh shit. I mean, the thing is,
why did he not lock? Why did he lock
the door?
Why would you not lock? Come on, Neil.
Maybe he's into that sort of thing.
But it's literally the last Friday I was watching. I can't remember what it was. There was football on the TV.
Yeah.
And he was on the sidelines chatting about something, and he's just on screen, and I just started laughing. And Luke, my housemate, is sitting there on the other sofa, and he went, "Why?" And then, but he obviously watched, or he spoke to you about, I don't know.
Yeah.
But Luke went, "Why?" And then he went, "Oh, it's because Sav walked in and having a poo in it." I was like, "Yeah, I just can't look at him anymore. It's funny."
You probably don't even remember it now, but it's just one of those things. It's a great story to tell.
It's so good.
It's just such an obscure celebrity.
It's also
was it
just
a smelly poo?
I can't remember.
It's
probably.
just a funny, harmless anecdote.
Yeah, and it was but there's a few of those like I've told you the one about Rio.
No,
have I not?
Don't think so.
I think I have. So it was
he was having a wee.
No, it wasn't that. It was like a FA Cup final, Hull versus Arsenal.
Yeah,
and it was I believe it was the 90th minute, and we was going into extra time, but I needed to get the card from one end of Wembley Stadium to the other.
Oh yeah,
I've told you this story, haven't I?
Yeah.
I had to get the card from one end of Wembley to the other. And if you've been to Wembley like you have, you know it's a huge stadium.
Big.
Absolutely massive. Where the trucks are, it's essentially underground. Yeah. So I'm pitch side, which was, again, a madness. Being an Arsenal fan, watching Hull versus Arsenal in the FA Cup final at Wembley, pitch side was a madness. So anyway, I'm next to this cameraman. He's like, all right, here's the card. That's got to be back at those trucks in like 90 seconds. Otherwise, we can't use that footage. I was like, what? So I've pegged it. I was in good shape them times, because when you're a runner, you're literally walking around so much. You're doing miles every day.
Yeah.
I was in good shape, and I've pegged it from one end to the other. Got there in like 80 seconds. Madness, right? I felt like the man. Given the guy's thing, he's like, oh, wicked. Didn't expect you to get that back. We weren't even going to use it. So I was like, oh, wicked. So I just ran the length of it Wembley for no reason, but cool, whatever. Gave him the thing. Went back to the trucks to just see if anybody needed anything. And the production coordinator at the time comes over. She goes, oh, let me talk to you quickly. I was like, what? Have I done something wrong? She's like, no. So I'm standing at this is what she said. So I'm standing at the sidelines and stand next to Rio Ferdinand. I was like, okay. She goes, yeah, so I see you running really fast. And Rio goes, oh, that guy's mad quick, you know.
So good.
So that's another one. That's
like, you love that one.
Oh,
I bet you felt like the
so
boy.
And the thing is, growing up, when I was playing football in school, I was a centre back. So Rio was like the man. Like,
but
he was
also
the guy
just
I idolized. Like, he was just a mad player.
Sorry, but a pro athlete. Saying you're mad quick.
I was running in chinos as well. Man was wearing chinos, blood. Madness.
I want to know if you're probably giving it the arm.
Shame you've lost that bit of pace now.
Yeah. Well, having said that, third in the 100 metres on Sports Day.
Who was second there?
So
fair play.
We want to, because we obviously want some time where we can get to questions and stuff. So let's just fast forward it slightly to, we end up working on the Olympics together.
Yeah.
When you then come back to that project.
So Joe's original question was, how did I get editing?
That's what I was going to say. So tell us basically, tell us about Andy.
Yeah, mate. So there was a bloke who used to work for Sunset and Vine, and specifically on the Olympics, called Andy Lynch, and he was, I believe, an assistant producer, then producer, on the channel. And I'd say between him, Jose, and Dom, I learnt a lot, not just editing wise, but behind the camera and scripting and how to produce a shoot. Because a lot of those guys, they weren't they weren't orthodox people within the industry. When you're doing a big shoot now with big budget, you've got a cameraman, you've got a soundie, you've got a producer, you've got the person who's asking the questions. They were what you call self-shooters.
Yeah.
So they're going to different countries and around the world, and the video is literally from A to Z. So you're starting by contacting the agent.
Yeah.
Then you're setting up a time to shoot. This is all them setting up a time to shoot.
They did everything.
Yeah. So from A to Z, they get the video uploaded. And I learned so much in that working environment because it was such a small team. I could work very intimately with all of them.
Yeah, sorry, I said tell us about Andy, but all of them.
Yeah,
like,
I got to work with loads of people in that team and people who were really, really good at their jobs. My first ever video that's on YouTube is called, it's 90 seconds. You remember the strand 90 seconds?
Yeah.
90 seconds of Olympic moustaches.
Bangers.
What?
It was a Movember
It
special.
was a November special.
Jesus.
And
That
that
sounds
was my
like-
first. That was my
And
first.
you
ever.
gotta remember when we were working in the Olympics, any win you could get in terms of a video that was a little bit more,
Edgy.
let's use the word kooky,
yeah.
we had to go for it because
yeah.
it was feature length pieces about good high like quality interviews and whatever all the time.
Yeah.
So 90 seconds of Olympic moustaches,
Go for it.
banging that out.
That's
what
that's
we use.
McKeamy style. Do you remember McKeamy came and he went, yeah, let's go and do if 10 rugby union nations were football teams.
Brilliant. It's good stuff.
Class.
But it was like a good stepping stone because I was learning on Final Cut Pro, and that was quite different to what we use now in Adobe Premiere because there was a slightly different process. You had to
Yeah, I learned
encode. You had to encode the
FCP
footage
as well.
before we even started editing with it. You had to make sure it was all in 420. What was it? Apple ProRes.
Yeah,
420,
ProRes
something like that.
420 it was,
there
yeah.
you go. And you had to make sure that it was in all that. So now you can edit with whatever with whatever code that you want. But I think 18 years old was when I started editing. I didn't start editing until I came back from BT Sport. And I went on a few trips abroad. Well, one trip abroad to Switzerland, which was probably where I then realised I liked being behind the camera as well, as far as like using the camera and stuff. Just shooting B-roll, as you know now, it's fun.
B-roll's
shooting
the
B-roll.
best thing.
It's just fun.
Yeah.
Like you can be as
Don't worry
creative
about
as you want.
anything.
Yeah, do you know what I mean? And there was, we went and shot in Switzerland for this big sort of judo convention, and I was just getting loads, like too much B-roll, like to the point where
Never
I
had
was
too much B-roll.
Just
using
seeing you in
so many cards, so many like SD cards.
I've never seen a bigger smile on Zach Jalab's face than
They
when he's
shoot
filming
in
B-roll.
It's
Yeah.
so fun.
It's the same though. I completely
Yeah,
agree.
it is
B-roll's
so
the best
fun.
to get.
It's so fun. But to answer your question, that's sort of how I got into editing. Just watching.
And then
people.
Horner brought you to Diagonal View.
Indeed, he did. So the contract that we were working on, the Olympics, was
Headhunted you.
headhunted. So the contract we were working on came to an end, and I was eventually made redundant.
I wasn't there at this point. I was back
No,
at Diagonal
you'd
View.
already come back. Yeah, so I was made redundant.
Picked you up on a free transfer. Man.
Yeah, free transfer thing. And then I was then put into the hands of Adam King. So I was actually working on something called Dugout when I first came to Diagonal View. Which
Still
is,
going
Still
now?
going.
Is
Still,
it?
yeah, still going. Yeah.
still done.
As an online property, not with what you were doing.
Right, okay.
What they were originally, because what you were doing was they were trying to add something to their portfolio, basically.
So I think their brief was they wanted to become the Facebook of football. I think that was what their goal, their plan was to
Yeah, I think
become
now they basically syndicate clips
Yeah.
of.
Yeah, their
clubs,
business model's
training
different
footage
now.
and stuff.
But yeah,
Right,
pretty
okay.
much. They're almost content licenses.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was brought in on that, which was just the sort of the in. That was the foot in the door I needed to get into the company. And I think I've spoken about this before, but after that was finished, I came and worked in the edit pool within this company that was working on all-time 10s, all-time movies, all-time conspiracies,
Gaming?
one-on-one facts, never gaming. Some like 1 or 2 Football Daily vids, I think.
What was the gap between Sunset and Vine here? I can't remember.
No more than a month or 2.
I remember when you first text me.
Yeah, so there was
Saying,
an ad
but-
on Grapevine for a senior editor, and I was like,
Good decision.
just why not? Just try and see what it's saying. I called Warner. No, I did. I text you, whatever.
I can't remember. Yeah, one or the other. Yeah.
And I was like, Any chance?
Any chance? Yeah,
Danger.
any chance?
Any danger? And then he said, I mean, it's for a senior role, but I'll give you your CV. Anyway.
I didn't say. I wasn't like that.
No, you wasn't.
But I do remember Horner being like, I think I was there. I remember Horner being like, I actually never put people's names forward for jobs.
Yeah.
But I will put this guy's forward.
Yeah. But the one thing I will say is, I remember at the time, I said to him, I went, all right, I said, send me your show reel.
Yeah.
And he went,
Panic Station.
He went,
you mad? I didn't have one.
He went, you what? I went, you're an editor. Like, send me a show reel. He went,
I
was like, all right, cool. I said, we basically we was chatting. We was like,
you better make one then.
Call our old boss at Sunset and Vine.
Yeah.
See if they can sort you out a computer to go do some cuts with. And you went back and put one together.
I had a laptop at home, but I went in with my hard drive and I just took loads and loads of their videos.
Yeah.
That I'd cut and ones I didn't as well.
And then he put together a thing.
And then I put together a show reel.
Yeah.
It was so bad. It was so bad. And the thing is, I've come in, sitting in front of Adam King and Tom Drinkwater, and Adam's like, I don't really know what I'm looking at here. So Tom, do you wanna give us an indication as to how good this is? Basically, that's what you were saying. And Tom was like, oh yeah, it's really, really good. And I was like, this is terrible.
He looked the part though. When Sam come in for his interview, I met you out.
I don't think he was there.
I met you outside. Or did I met you outside as you come out?
It was the day you lot were getting back from racing Siobhan O'Connor.
Oh God, yeah, when you did the swimming race against her.
Yeah, the Olympic swim.
Yeah.
And
I wasn't wearing shorts and stuff. I was having a mess.
No.
Good, thank God.
It was actually you were coming out then, and he did look. I remember you had your blue coat on.
The blue coat, I've still
which
got that
is
now.
still like it's a banger.
A mad coat. It only gets brought out for special occasions.
But so then you came in using the edit pool.
I was in the edit pool for about 6 months.
He settled in like that, didn't he?
No.
I don't think I did, to be fair.
I think he was not with us because he was on a different floor to us, isn't it?
Well, I started on your floor with Dugout.
No, he was on our floor.
But I wasn't interacting with them guys.
I don't remember speaking to you ever.
He was on the table with
Teeth and Blue. Do you remember Blue?
No.
Blue. You don't remember Blue? Anyway, it doesn't matter.
No, fair play. So I was on the second floor for the majority of the first half of my life at DV. And that was in the edit pool. But from there, because I was not a bad football player and we started playing football and stuff, we started interacting more. And obviously because I was close with you and Mills, I'd go and see you guys and then interact with you through, if that makes sense. And
then you got balls up.
And then quiz. But I think it was, I think the first video that you had given me to edit was the Arsenal Big Fat Quiz of the Year or something like that. Big Fat Arsenal Quiz.
Oh, right. Yeah.
With Thierry Henry and Niall Quinn.
That was a good video as well.
Yeah, and I think that was what made you and Dave think, let's get him to do.
Because that actually was such a good video.
It was a good video.
Like, there was some good. Thierry Henry was on fire in
the
that
worst
video.
thing
And he
about
was
that
like
video,
giving really funny reactions and bantering off Niall Quinn.
The only bad thing about that video is the chair they've got Babs
I know. And he looks okay.
Because Babs so much lower than everyone else.
Yeah, he looks miniature.
But it looks funny because he's like this.
Yeah. But that video, Thierry Henry was on fire. As the best performance I've seen him give on a digital video.
It's good,
ever,
really good.
Really good. And it was just it was probably the most fun edit I'd done up until that point.
Yeah.
Like everything else I was working on before that wasn't necessarily something that I would have watched unless I was working on it. So that was the first time I was like, oh, this is cool. And even Fact Wars. I enjoyed editing Fact Wars for a little while on Dave and John.
Shout out. R.I.P.
Shout out, R.I.P.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd say that was probably...
Should we
get
get
into the DV
I think
lifestyle.
that's
some questions from
because
fans
that's kind of, we want to get some questions in, and that's kind of about, you then ended up on Balls Up, and the rest is history. You've seen it go from there.
Done though.
But we obviously asked you guys to send in your questions for Sab, just so we know how much we're working with it. 15 minutes, 20 minutes,
10 minutes.
10 minutes. We'll push it 15.
Cool.
I've got 15. So
He's only got 3 questions, so shouldn't we say?
Yeah, good one.
Um,
bum.
Right, so I'm going to ask this one straight up, just because about 20 of you asked about it, but. Who does your trims and how often do you get them?
So shout out my boy Sats. I've been getting a trim off him for the longest time now, man. A guy, he grew up in my area, known him for a long time. He does all my trims and I've added him on every single post. So if you're not following me, then go follow man on socials and then you would know where I get my trims. Simple as. What was the other part of that question?
The other part was how often do you get them?
How often?
I was about to sort of try and shout out one of them that asked it, and I just looked at the first name, and it's the Jihadi next door.
Wicked. Well, that's just fantastic, isn't
it? Anyway.
Yeah, but every 10 days or so. Joe probably hit the nail on the head first time there.
Yeah.
I used to get it every weekend, but that got to the point where there was no need. I wasn't going out that much.
Yeah.
So why am I getting a trim?
Sitting at home with a fresh trim playing FIFA.
Literally.
Here's a good one. George Lopez asks,
Shout out George.
Who do you always look up to for motivation?
No worries, mate. Go ahead and say it now.
The myth.
If you look at the myth,
No.
you think you can't get that back, can it? I can't go that far backwards, can I? I'm going to turn up to an office and forget my own trousers. He's today in work and he's forgot his
He's got a little pair of
trousers,
shorts
and he's got a pair of little skinny shorts on that he's found in lost property. How do you turn up to work after cycling?
But you wouldn't know. It looks
and
like he's got a pair of
forget?
fleece leggings
Honestly.
on. But hold up, it's just the hairy legs on him.
That's probably how I forgot. Looked in the mirror this morning and went, trousers are on.
Trousers are on, don't need to worry about that.
Don't worry about putting
Right,
it
so
on.
go on, answer the question. Who do you always look up to for motivation?
Most motivational. That's actually a really, really tough question. Most motivational.
Get your mum in there early. And then
I'll
we
tell
can
you.
move
I'll tell
on.
you a good motivation.
Go on.
And
Patch Van
you
Strong.
lot, this is actually a first for you lot. You lot don't even know this. I've never disclosed this to anybody. I've got a kid, and that's probably my main motivation.
Madness.
And you lot believe me.
Oh my god.
What do you mean?
Oh my
For half a second, I was like,
Oh my god.
is he playing it?
Oh my god. I
Right.
actually just fully believed him. My heart just went a second. I was about to cry.
Do you know what the first thing
What
I
just
thought? Do you know the
happened?
first thing I thought was fair play that he's never disclosed that. I was like, how has he kept that?
Nah,
Yeah.
man.
Are
That's
we
too far,
cutting
to
that
be
out?
honest.
No. That's
I was
No,
like,
that was
right,
good.
I thought
Yeah,
you said
come on.
cut that.
No,
No,
next
no,
one.
no,
Next
no.
one.
Decent. Right, so come on, who's most
Jesus.
who
Most
do you look to
motivational,
for
I'd-
He's
motivation?
already said it's me. Let's move on.
definitely my mum.
Your mum.
It
Yeah.
has to be. Yeah.
Just
definitely.
because I feel like we didn't touch enough on it, and she deserves for you to give her a minute or two of
Yes.
a camera time to talk about it. Tell us a little bit about what your mum does, because she's a pretty incredible woman.
What doesn't she do, man? So my mum is a pastor. She is the titled Reverend Lucy Berry.
Bang.
She has done a lot. She was a copywriter herself when she was in advertising. She's also a poet and has been published. She's a published author. She travels a lot. So when I've said in the past, like, she's got places she's been that I would never even dream of being able to go. But she's been to places like Palestine and just sort of reading poetry to people. She's probably like the closest person I could say to the quintessential Christian.
Yeah.
As far as like when you read about Christianity and the way Jesus wanted people to be, that's the way my mum is. And she's kind of like, she started a campaign in, I believe, 2010 called Zero Intolerance. She got blackballed by the church for it, essentially, I'd say, because Zero Intolerance was a campaign that she started to try and include everybody. And this sounds ridiculous, but include everybody to church, which you'd think everyone does already. There's a lot of prejudice towards gay people, a lot of prejudice towards people of certain colour, people of certain backgrounds, and she wanted a program implemented into her denomination, which is the URC, that would mean that anybody who wanted to worship would be allowed to. Because a lot of people get turned away from church, which she sort of had the mantra that we don't own God. It's not for you to say who can and can't worship him. So why do you get to turn people away? I completely understand somebody who's got a rape conviction should be watched when they're in the church to make sure nothing mad happens, but you don't own God, so you can't tell him not to worship God. If he wants to turn his life around and repent his sins, then let him do it, if that makes sense. She's a very controversial person, and she's even though you would say quintessential Christian, you wouldn't say quintessential reverend, because she's got short hair of different colours on multiple days. She's got various tattoos, probably 9 or 10 tattoos, like massive tattoos as well, not like unnoticeable tattoos. So like when she goes to like new churches and then she walks in, they're like, oh yeah, just have a seat. So, no, I'm the pastor today. I'm preaching today. You're preaching. What? You know what I'm saying? I love my mum, man. She's made me who I am today. Like there's she's the biggest influence and the biggest inspiration and the biggest motivation in my life.
Do you know
Hands
what? I
down.
think
That's
that's
a
like
great answer.
that's the perfect
Yeah.
answer to the most
Fantastic answer.
motivational
Next one.
person. So first, a couple people have asked a quick one. Who do you support? We pretty much know
Arsenal.
it anyway. He's an Arsenal fan.
Always to the death, the Gunners, the Gooners.
Alvin asked,
Big up Alvin the Chipmunk.
"Is that such his full name, Alvin the Chipmunk?
Done now.
How did you meet your girlfriend?"
Oh, controversial.
Are we allowed
one.
to say a name on this?
Yeah,
No.
yeah. Sakina. So
Shout out, she's quality.
we met on a boat party.
Although make me that cold and flu stuff, Keena.
I'll actually get her to make it. We met on a boat party. She went to a university
In England.
in the UK. Yes.
Oh my god, who's doing boat parties in the UK?
Thames, bro.
I thought you
on the
meant.
Thames, mate.
I thought you went. She went to university, and he went in England, as if that was shocking.
No, so we met on the Thames, mate. It was like a freshers party. For this law, it's like a.
What were you
private-
doing there?
So my boy, who I used to live with, was actually working there as an
Right.
administrator, and he said, "If you want, I can get you tickets for this freshers party. It's going to be a bit dead. Like, I'll be honest, most of the people that go to this uni are boring."
What was your
That was
intro
like
line to
cool.
Keena?
There was no intro line, so I was dancing in the middle of a circle, not in the middle of a circle, but I was dancing in a circle, and she was like on the outskirts. She was with this some weird brer that she was there with, some Italian don, and I was like, right, he looks like a waste man, so it's cool. So I was like, come in it, like come dance, and she was like, oh yeah, cool, was dancing or whatever, and I could tell that this Italian don was just not feeling it. Like, you know those guys that they're just there as a mate, but they don't really want it to be a mates thing. They want it to be a thing.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But that's where he was there in that capacity. So I think he was getting a bit like agitated or whatever. But I was like, whatever. Night comes to an end, and me and my boy was like, cool, well, we're going home now, whatever. And she's like, she sort of, we always disagree on this bit. I always say that she moved to me. Yeah. I don't think that I made the first move in it.
Always debatable though.
I
In
don't
most
think-
relationships,
I don't
who
think I
wanted it
made the
more?
first move. She waved and was like, "Are you going?" I was like, "Yeah, I'm off." And then she was with a group of girls, and they sort of milled over to our area, and then we sort of started conversing from there. Went to get McDonald's, and it was just cool. Got her in a cab. I was like, I didn't even say give me your number. I just gave her the phone. I said, "Oh yeah, put your number in there." And then she put her number in the phone.
I thought you were going to say got her in a cab, got her home. I was going to be like, this is your man.
No. And then she didn't really she wasn't really having it with me, you know. Like I was texting her like these long paragraphs.
She's
and
smart.
She'd just be like, yeah, cool. I'd be like, oh, mad, like.
Yeah, but she knows that's gonna make you want to do it
So
more.
I was
though.
like, what's going on? Why are you not texting me properly? Is that what I'm saying? So I was like, nah, let me text this girl. Text
I'm
her.
paying.
Like texting that, but then times there I didn't really have the beard like that. So
Ah.
you know what I'm saying? It weren't really one of them ones.
So she was with you before the glow up.
Yeah, man, she was there before. That's how I know she actually likes, man. But that's how we met.
All right,
That's
I reckon last two questions,
Yeah,
last
yeah.
question, maybe
Okay,
one
so
more.
We'll do one question here, and then we'll do our sort of normal round off ones that we have. Cool.
Can't
So
remember those.
Ancella Barkley, I don't know if I've said that wrong, so sorry, but just because we hinted at it before, asks, I heard you're a model. Is this true? And if so, what company are you modelling for? I'll chuck in one other that we had, which kind of lumps into that, which you could answer quick as well, though. Was that, I'm trying to find who it was, but
another one.
Ben Abraham asked along with that, what's your favourite tracksuit? Because you love a tracksuit. And it's model / fashion, so.
So we'll go to modelling one first. I'm not a model at all.
Why you act like one then?
What do you mean? I don't like
Good,
that.
that is
you
a
mad?
good bit, that.
You absolutely do
really-
act like one on your Instagram.
I definitely don't.
I've never seen a man pose on a boat quite like Sav Berry.
Sorry,
mean, yeah.
sorry. You wore an off-white jacket on Oxford Street to post, have a photo taken so it
True,
could go
true.
on your Instagram before you returned it.
Dig me out of that.
So don't try that.
Dead. That's all. Yeah, fair.
But to answer your question, no, I'm not a model. Basically, anything you see me on, or me and Dave on, is through work. Like somebody at work will have approached us and say, "Oh, we think you'd be good for this or good
Which
for
is
that."
why they're both perfect for Giacomo.
Yeah. Although I won't be by the end of the year because I'm going to be in good shape by the end of the year.
No, but I'll tell you what. Shout out though. Like it's been quality, innit? Doing
has
stuff
been-
for them has been.
It's been really good.
It was the first thing me and Sam have ever kind of ventured into of doing that. And seriously, doing the stuff with Giacomo, just quality group of people working with,
Yeah.
not like real good fun, and I think
Just
we'll be
it's
doing
just
more with
a
them.
new thing that I can say I've done.
Yeah, wicked.
You know what I mean? But tracksuit wise, favourite tracksuit, probably the Versace one I've got. You know what I'm
Alright,
saying?
The verses.
Probably
Come on,
the
how do we
Versace
usually wrap these
Versace.
off? What do I? Wrap these up.
Usually we let him finish answering that question before you butt in.
Yeah, I know, but I need to wait really
So
bad.
I'll tell you what.
Would you be careful?
Here's how we'll. Oh God, the state of them.
Oh, you silly.
no.
That's how you round it off.
There's the balls up first.
Right.
Let's just leave that there, shall we?
This is all time spent. For anyone listening, not watching, they've just knocked over one of the bottles of Ginger Joe we've got sitting
Don't
behind
worry
us,
about
and
it.
it's
It's fine,
fizzing
man.
all over the
Crates
place.
messed up anyway.
So
Good B-roll.
that'll be in your coming up bit at the start of the video.
Yeah.
This will be good B-roll.
We'll rattle this off 2 quick questions. First of
Go
all,
on. Smells nice, man.
what's one video that you want to see us make?
Oh, I would like. I think I've said this before, but I'd really like for us to do another country, preferably a cold country.
Huh?
Yeah, man. I want to do like slaying.
Siberia.
Like I want to go and do like husky slaying in the
Slaying.
Okay,
snow.
I like that. That's decent.
See what I'm saying? Like
It's
go on
cool.
the huskies and that. Like
What I like about it
mush
is most of
and
us
then
that we've
man
asked this to, there's always want to go on tour, or there's a slightly different variation on it. So
yeah,
there's
because I
loads we
want to
can
do like snowmobiles and like
Yeah, it's
ice and
cool.
something mad
It's
like
decent.
that. Do you know what I'm saying?
I like that. That's
Something
cool.
like that. That would be a mad video.
So, final question that we'll round off with.
Yeah.
We always ask. We do. I feel like I got a chance to talk about everyone, so we'll do the same for you last week. Usually, Sav wants to ask, "What was your first impressions of Joe?"
Yeah.
But so go and just
Why is it always me?
rattle because so many people ask it. Seriously, ask whenever we do this. People always ask, "What was your first impression of Joe?" Or one today was, "Have you ever had the urge to kill Joe?"
Yeah, of course, everyone has.
But
I've never had
give
the urge
us
to kill him.
give us a quick run through of each person in the nation.
So what I first thought of Joe,
You said this before, actually. I
abrasive,
remember.
just abrasive. Like he was just very in your face, like way too familiar too quickly. That was my first impression.
Everybody always says that. I'm always
Yeah.
too familiar too quickly.
Yeah, like-
I think it's because when people always said it when I was younger as well. When I used to go in people's houses, they'd be like, "What are you doing there? Like, you can't be
Bro,
just in
the
there."
first
Sorry,
time he was in my house.
The first time Joe was in Sav's house, he was right. So it was bad enough that he was going through the fridges and the freezer while Sav's out the room as well.
Yeah.
But then Sav goes upstairs to go get whatever you were getting from your room or whatever.
Yeah.
And Joe just sees his opportunity and just has to run upstairs and start looking around.
Why?
Don't know. I needed to
Too
know.
familiar.
I needed to know.
All you can hear is upstairs go, "What's in here then? What's in here then? What's in this room?"
Everybody always says that. That's bizarre.
So I'd say that's first impressions of Joe. First impressions of Dave. Now Dave was an interesting one because why are you laughing? Dave was an interesting one because I was working in a much more corporate environment the first time I was in a workplace, and Dave was somebody I could identify was from a similar place to me and had a similar upbringing to an extent. So I was like, all right, me and this guy can par on a level and get where each other are coming from. So
Yeah.
that was my first impression of Dave. As far as the myth,
This is the one I wanted because I feel like he deserves this.
as far as the myth,
Hairy.
So uncalled for.
Walked in the interview, so get him out. Fucking full moon's turned out.
Don't bite my mic.
first impression.
Look at the hair on it.
But in all honesty, first impression of the myth, he was punctual. That was the first thing. And that, what? He's gone. He was punctual. And he was like, he was smart. This is like the first interview I'm talking about. Yeah. He's gone. It was just
Off
like
his own joke.
of his own
no,
joke.
it
I
was
know.
good, wasn't it?
It was good, to be fair. But it was definitely like a case of. In fact, I'll tell you what. I know we were joking about it. The myth has upped my game a lot. Since he's come, I feel as if we've had to what? Nah.
I feel he's overtaking it.
Yeah, good one. I think he's upped my game a lot just because of the fact that now we've got much more of a proper working production, and I feel like we've just come a long way since we've had more hands.
You work well together.
Yeah, definitely. I think we've got the same
Work ethic.
same work ethic, which is definitely something that's
Sharp, late, leave late.
essentially, yeah.
Missed
No,
it, mate.
No,
he's
no,
always
missed not
early.
late. Yeah. Missed
He's
always on
got
time.
to get in before sunrise, isn't he?
Yeah.
That's what. That,
Well, that full moon gets up.
And first impressions of Georgia. I actually can't remember my first impressions. I'll be honest, like if I'm completely honest, I was just happy there was another black person here. I think that was probably my first. Like obviously Aaron left, Blue left, and Teeth left. I was just the only one for like a good while. And I was like, this is just back to
Hang on,
Sunset and Vine,
so
innit?
you joined before Georgia?
Yeah, well before.
See,
Well
I
before.
get that mixed up. I assume Georgia. I don't know why I feel like Georgia was here before you. Maybe
No.
not.
So I joined, and then Aaron was leaving. That like 2 weeks after I
Yeah, that's why we got you in because Aaron was.
Aaron leaving. You got to meet the quota. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, I'd say that was like, if I'm honest, yeah, that was my first impressions of Georgia. That's my first impressions of everyone
That's
there.
decent,
I hope you enjoyed.
Yeah, nice. I
That
enjoyed
was
that, mate.
nice.
That was good. That was a good podcast. Well done.
Yeah.
Well done, everybody.
Yeah.
Congratulations. Hope you recorded that well, Myth.
He goes, so do I.
Anyway, so there you go. Get to know Sav. Thank you so much for sending in all your questions for the big man.
Yeah, man.
Seriously, loads of questions, and we don't really get enough time when we do these to answer.
We'll answer them as stickers on Instagram. We'll answer them. So
Yeah.
can go through
Okay, yeah. So we'll send.
Instagram.
Good job we do that now at the end of probably the last get to know that we've got to do.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
we'll chuck Sav on the IG for
Yeah, man.
on the day this. Well, yeah, we'll do it now, and then it goes out pretty soon. So.
Yeah.
But thank you for sending your questions, and obviously keep them coming because we'll answer whatever ones we can. But Joe, do you want to give us your? I'll rate us 5 stars and all that. I'll let you sign
Yeah.
off with your bit. But
Rate us 5 stars, review us 5 stars. Thanks very much for listening with your ears and watching with your eyes. Goodbye.
there it is.